Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, March the 15th. The Ides of March is race number 5 at Gulfstream Park, kicking off a 50-cent pick 5. Let's take a look at this field. These are 3-year-old fillies, first level allowance condition, $75,000 claiming option, going 7/8 of a mile on the dirt. The 6 Amor Fati is the 5-2 morning line favorite. Her participation is somewhat questionable, however, though, Mike, because Brittany Russell has entered her back on Sunday in the Any Limit Stakes, and she might go there.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even notice that. So that's a good catch right there. I mean, if she runs here, maybe she's the horse to beat. Dan, I'll tell you what, though, this is a pretty strong entry-level allowance race. 4 of these horses have already run in stakes races.
There's a good amount of speed in here as well, with or without the 6 Amor Fati. Let's throw up our time form US pace projector. We see her out on the lead. She was very fleet in her debut. The 8 Mystifying showed speed for Shug McGahee first time out. That's something you don't see very often. And Kozal, a 2-time winner stepping up in class, also has speed. I wouldn't count Hot Beach out of this pace projector, though, Mike, because she's fresh and tactical.
Yeah, there's enough speed to go around in here, Dan. It sort of feels like just based on her first start, if Amor Fati runs here, she looked like she was pretty quick in that race. So I won't be surprised if she's on the lead again.
Kozal, the number 1, was a winner 2 starts back in a maiden optional $50,000 heat, and then she faced fellow Florida breds in her first start against winners, and it was no contest. Let's watch Kozal, who went off 6-5 in this race, just went right to the front and extended her advantage. She wins by almost 13, going 7/8 and 23 and change.
Yeah, already got the 7 furlong win, which is no small feat. She's a 2-time winner. She had an easy lead in this race, Dan. It just kind of felt like she was way better than these horses, but it's hard not to be impressed with her last 2 starts. She looked really good winning both times.
The number 2 is Miss Justify, and this daughter of Triple Crown winner Justify made 2 starts last year at Laurel Park for a low-profile but solid trainer in Susan Cooney. Her second start was a third-place effort in the Smart Halo Stakes at Laurel. We'll take a look at that race right now. This is a solid enough race. The 5th-place finisher came back to win a first-level allowance with a 73 buyer, then won the Wide Country Stakes with a 79. Miss Justify ran pretty well considering it was only her first start against winners.
Yeah, I thought this was an okay performance too. To me, the most interesting thing about this race, Dan, is she broke really sharply in here, broke to the lead, but they didn't really want to go with her there. They took her back. She wound up chasing 3 wide. And I liked the way that she stayed on at the end of the race. I thought her debut was really impressive. Also from off the pace, she gets out of the gate really well. She has Lasix now for this start, and there could be a pretty good trip coming if this pace goes in front of her.
And she now moves into the Todd Pletcher barn, where she has been at Palm Beach Downs training for most of the winter. So she should be acclimated. She should be part of Todd's program. And as Mike mentioned, there should be plenty of pace for her to attack. The 3 is Runaway Diva. This one was a debut winner at Tampa Bay Downs in her one and only start as a 2-year-old filly. Last time out in the Gasparilla, Mike, she was wired. I don't know if I love that race, however. She was listed as a Gulfstream Park vet scratch on Valentine's Day, and it's taken her about a month to get back in the entries.
We'll see how quickly she can rebound, I guess, Dan. I mean, it's hard to be impressed with the Gasparilla, whether you liked her in that race or not. She didn't really run that well and finish last. The flip side of that is, and I know the debut didn't come back that fast, but it was 6.5. It's been a pretty live race, and she was pretty good winning there from off the pace.
A 3rd-place finisher from the Gasparilla did come back to play. She was a big price in the Gasparilla, that horse, and she only earned a 60 buyer when second in a first-level allowance. I think Sing a Little Song is very interesting, especially if this pace holds up on paper. Career debut came from way out of it to score for trainer Ian Wilkes, who is not known for having them ready first out. Hence, she was 43-1. In her second lifetime start, she faced a pretty promising filly in Leslie's Rose. The runner-up from that race came back to win with an 85 buyer, and it was a race where she just didn't get the setup from the back.
Yeah, true enough. I mean, we'll see if she gets the setup here, because it kind of feels like that's going to be important to her, Dan. If nothing else, I think this is a really good race, but maybe that last one was even tougher than this one, considering what the 1-2 finishers have looked like so far. Her debut was fine, but it was one of those races where you wanted to be where she was, way off the pace. The pace totally fell apart, and the closers dominated in that.
In many ways, the number 5 Hot Beach is the horse to beat based on her very consistent 2-year-old campaign, a stakes winner at this distance at Ellis Park, and then faced some good competition in her final 2 starts of the year. Vivi's Dream won the Pocahontas, and then the horse that beat her last time out in the Myrtlewood came back to win a stakes race with an 86 buyer at Churchill Downs. Hot Beach is a horse now getting Lasix for the first time with tactical speed, and I would expect her to take her share of money.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I respect the fact that she broke her maiden in a stakes race, and I guess she's run okay in the 2 starts since then against better horses. I mean, maybe if I really wanted to fall in love with her at a short price, I would wish that she was maybe a little bit more competitive in those races. She was well beaten both times, but I just won't knock her overall form. I'm not dying to bet her at a short price, Dan, but she's supposed to be tough in here.
If the number 6 or more Fatih runs here, she's a strong contender based on her 80 buyer speed figure in the career debut we're going to take a look at right now. For trainer Brittany Russell, they knew she was bet down at 2-1 in a 10-horse field. She went fast on the lead, 21-3, 44-3. She keeps right on going. The 5th place finisher would come back to win with an 84 buyer, and she's got some pedigree. She's a half to accretive who's multiple grade 2 placed for Chad Brown.
Yeah, I didn't even really feel like she looked totally professional in here, Dan. I think she just kind of did it on a lot of talent in there. She's really fast. It was obviously a very impressive debut. We'll see if she runs here. We'll see what kind of price she gets because she could go favored, and maybe she should. But this is a tough race, and I just wanted to point out one thing because Brittany Russell does a really good job and she wins tons of races. But winning on debut and then coming right back to win again, it's not an easy thing to do anyway. Her numbers with horses like this, they're not good at all.
And that's an angle we've been talking about up in the Maryland press boxes at Laurel at Pimlico in the past. Brittany has unbelievable numbers. This, not to her usual standard, but Amor Fati certainly has some ability. Above the Sun is the number 7, and she came from off the pace 3 starts back, going 2 turns at Keeneland to win. Her 2 starts against winners have not been great, although one came without Lasix, the other was on synthetic. She has to prove her mettle from a class standpoint as she cuts back in distance. She might be outrun completely in the first quarter mile.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the race falls into her lap. Maybe you want to look at her at a big price and say she'll be better sprinting, although that's a pretty difficult case to make just on paper. Of the 2 Wilkes horses, the other one looks way more interesting. This one just has to take a big step forward.
Shug McGahee sent out a nice curlin filly, the number 8 Mystifying, to win her career debut. And again, it's not like Shug to have him really cranked up. This filly did some good work in this race. Let's take a look at Mystifying, going 3/4 of a mile. And while the pace wasn't blazing, it was contested. She put away her pace rival. She opens up, and she has enough to hold off the closers. Now, I'm not really sure what she beat. There was one next out winner, but that horse came back to win sprinting on turf with a 78 buyer.
Yeah, I don't know about this field either. I just think it's encouraging. It's mostly based on this horse's pedigree, Dan, which says distance and maybe turf. This horse was fast out of the gate. She had a lot of speed. She secured the inside up the backstretch. That horse that was running at her late there was an odds-on favorite, and she just turned that horse away. I was pretty taken with that debut, and she might be a fair price in here.
And if Amor Fati scratches, maybe Mystifying is the one to grab the early lead and perhaps try to take this field gate to wire. There are only 2 two-time winners in this field. The filly drawn towards the inside, and the number 9, Star of Saturn, who I think did some pretty good work off a fairly significant layoff last time out against Florida-bred first-level allowance horses. Star of Saturn was tucked in the pocket on the backstretch. The pace wasn't very fast. She angles 3 wide and still has some work to do, but she's going to come get these horses and get them pretty easily.
Yeah, I like this performance too. I mean, her 2 wins are against, Florida breds, and this feels like a way tougher race, but I like this performance. I thought her debut was good. The only loss, she's second to R. Harper Rose, who won the Forward Gal, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So that's a pretty nice horse. I mean, she's not that easy to knock down, and she's probably going to be a fair price. Her figures, they don't put her that far off.
Completing the field is the number 10, Caress. 2 turns to 1, turf to dirt for trainer George Weaver. Got a wet track the last time she raced on the main. That was in the Glitter Woman Stakes. The runner-up from that race came back to win an allowance with an 82 buyer. Her debut was a race I kind of liked at Belmont at the Big A, but she hasn't really come back to that race yet.
Yeah, her debut, she was just more professional, I thought, than she was impressive, and she got the job done. She hasn't really improved since then, and I know she's been in some tougher races. There are 2 wet tracks in there. There's a turf race in there. So maybe she's just dirtied up there. And I just don't like her lines enough to want to bet her against this field.
And before we take a look at our top selections for our Friday race of the day, please click the subscribe button for the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. You get the latest DRF video franchises. Top pick time For our Friday race of the day, you're going with Miss Justify. I think she's going to fall into a trip, Mike. I'm really not worried about layoffs because it's Pletcher and she's been training right along at Palm Beach Downs. And she did show some promise in the Mid-Atlantic as a 2-year-old.
That's how I looked at her too. I just liked her 2 races last year, so I'm just hoping she can build off of those now in a pretty tough allowance race here. I do want to wait and see what kind of price she is, though, Dan. If she takes too much of that Pletcher IRAD money, I'll probably just watch.
If Amor Fati runs here, I think she's the horse to catch, and she might be very tough to catch based on what we saw in her career debut. If she's out, I'm curious to see if the #1 Kozal classes up with these horses after beating weaker in her last two. I do know she's tactical and might be able to work out a decent trip. With Amor Fati out, the pace won't be as fast. 2856 for Mike, 6159 for me. It's our Friday race of the day, the 5th at Gulfstream. Good luck.